Hi, I'm David Martelli, and this is another Martelli Minute. But today we have a special edition because there's so many features and benefits that we want to cover, and here's the reason why. We typically keep all of our videos under 1 minute long. However, with this being such an important purchase, we want a little more time to show you just how important the features and benefits really are and go over them with a little more detail. This is our Advantage workstation. Now notice I use the word workstation. This is not simply just a cutting table. The first thing I want to show you, and I'm going to kind of be quiet here so you can listen. You hear that noise? Those are electric actuators, they're not hydraulic. That tells you you'll never get any hydraulic fluid on your floor to ruin it. Another thing, this table's made out of 3/4 inch HDPE. That stands for high density polyethylene. It's a real fancy word for high-end plastic. And the reason why that's important, it's super lightweight. Now we know that a standard doorway typically in a home is 32 inches. Well, it wasn't an accident that we made this 31 inches wide. So because this is plastic and it's super lightweight and it's 31 inches wide, we can simply move this table because it's so lightweight and it allows us to move it room to room. Now notice also our cutting mat is actually cut into the table itself. Now because these are all made on a CNC machine, we put a little bit larger tolerance in there so every mat will fit perfectly. And also, this is really, really cool. You're going to notice that this has independent suspension. You're going to say, okay, well, why is that important? Well, anybody that's cut strips and they've cut for long periods of time, at the end of the day, their shoulders and their back are killing them because they have to reach way out. The further they cut their lines, the further they have to reach with their body. And the further they have to reach with their body, they have a tendency to veer off to the right if they're right-handed or veer off to the left if they're left-handed. So you're wasting fabric, you're hurting your body. So by having independent suspension, you can put it on the perfect height for you. Once you have the perfect angle for you, you can raise and lower both sides at the same time. So independent suspension is so vitally important. So not only are you cutting ergonomically, which is uphill, and there's no more veering off to the right or left depending on what hand you have, you can actually now put this all the way in a down position. I'm about to share a couple secrets with you that you've never really thought about. Now, in relation to your sewing machine, when you typically sew, you sit right in front of the sewing machine. But again, that's not ergonomic, because if you're right hand dominant, you have to reach across your body, then you can't see behind the machine and you can only use the right hand. Now, the reason why everybody sits in front of their sewing machine is because whoever taught you, the person that actually taught you, when they were taught using a treadle machine. So their grandmother taught them on a treadle machine. A treadle machine has a fixed pedal and it's stuck on the inside of a cabinet. The way the sewing machines are today, it's pretty incredible. Notice I have the tilt, I've taken all the pressure off the shoulders, then I take my machine and I move it a little bit, getting the sewing machine out of my way, then I take my fanny and move it over about 8 inches. Now I put my dominant shoulder right in front of that needle. Now I can use both hands in front of the needle, beside the needle, and behind the machine. In front of the machine, beside the machine, and behind the machine. Now, something that everybody doesn't think about is your sewing machine are being advanced. It's advancing the fabric by the feed dogs. You don't have to advance the fabric. Your feed dogs are always going to advance straight. So take the machine, get it out of your way, and then scoot your fanny over, your butt over about 6 or 8 inches. That way everything's going perfectly straight. This is absolutely an incredible sewing table. It takes all the ergonomics and it reinforces you being able to sew ergonomically. And there's not another system out there that allows you to do that. And the last but not least, a lot of people don't think about this. Notice my sewing machine pad, the Get a Grip pad, holds the machine on there well, but also stops the vibration. And this is a really cool feature too. So now I'm gonna take my table and I'm gonna lift my table and I'm gonna put it back square. Now, have you ever thought about when you're doing binding? One of the biggest problems when you're doing binding is fighting with the weight of the quilt. So what we've done is we can take the table, we'll take the sewing machine, put it smack dab a quarter of the way up, or maybe a little bit past quarter of the way up, put the sewing machine right in the middle of the table. Now we can stand beside our quilt, and by using this table, we can now do our binding so much more easily because the table's actually holding the entire quilt up. Now not only do I have a cutting table where I can cut ergonomically, not only do I have a sewing table where I can sew ergonomically, now I can do binding much easier because the weight of the quilt is completely lifted off because the table's supporting the weight of the quilt. So there's so many things that you can do with the Advantage workstation. Go now to get your Martelli Advantage workstation at martellinotions.com.